So guys, to start off this video, we're going to look at a little bit of my training from the week, and then we're going to touch into some deeper topics later on that I think you'll enjoy. So first off, we're doing some leg pressing here. So this is a horizontal leg press. It's essentially the exact opposite to the experience you'd have in a normal leg press, in that here it's very difficult in the position when I'm fully pushed away, so when my legs are straight. When my legs are bent at the bottom, it's actually easier, and that relates to the way in which this resistance is moving around the axis. Okay, so this is different to when the leg press is on a sled. When the leg press is on a sled of sorts, most leg presses, they happen to be much harder at the bottom and pretty easy at the top. However, it is the total opposite here. It gets harder as you push away and easier as you come down. And when I say harder and easier, I don't mean that it's literally like an easier thing to do. It means that it's essentially lighter. But because of the way that that resistance relates to the body, it feels pretty damn hard throughout the rep. So here we have an incline bench press. I haven't done an incline bench press in quite a while. It just hasn't been in my program. So this is 70 kilos for sets of 8, I believe. So nothing extravagant. This isn't a personal best by any means, but enjoying this exercise, and I only really do it consistently anytime I happen to have access to an incline bench set up rather than setting it up manually, just because that tends to, be a little bit more annoying, harder to set up and not always accessible. So there you go. This is my favorite pull down ever. It's the Hammer Strength MTS front pull down, I believe is the full name. But essentially you've got a stack on each side, so each arm or side of the body is pulling an independent weight stack as opposed to pulling them together. And the beautiful thing about this is that it gets harder at the top, so the resistance starts to increase towards the top, and it gets that little bit lighter towards the bottom, which is, essentially makes for a pretty efficient challenge, because it's very challenging throughout the repetition as opposed to just being at one point of the repetition. And you can see how that resistance changes if you look at the way that the cables move in the top left position. You can see those cables are almost at 90 degrees as my arms get to the top, whereas they start to become a smaller angle as I pull down to the bottom, and that changes the actual resistance that you're working with. So that's important to note when you're using machines. You're not using the same weight throughout the repetition. That's not how it works. That's the purpose of machines, essentially. So great exercise there, really good exercise. This is a dumbbell shoulder press, pretty simple, nothing too special. This is a pretty unique bench in that it's not a standard bench. It's especially for shoulder pressing. Essentially what it allows for is for the top of your shoulder blades to be just above the top of the bench, so you're not totally like cramped in and stuck to it. And that kind of allows for slightly freer shoulder movement. Not that that's going to make a massive difference, but it does feel pretty damn comfortable. So this is 25 kilos in each arm for a set of, I haven't been counting, but I think it was 10 or something like that. I'm not sure, but yeah, there you go. And then we had some rows. So this was the Hammer Strength MTS row again. Really nice row. I really like these machines where you're not fully supinated, but you're kind of semi-supinated. So your hand is kind of like at an angle. That tends to suit the amount of supination range that most people have available, and it's a lot more comfortable to do as a result. So here again, very similar, beautifully built machine in that the resistance is actually increasing as the weight gets away from my body, and then it drops off a little bit as I pull in and I row. And that's the opposite again to what you'll experience when you're doing something like a barbell row. So you don't have to like jerk around and do the whole like moving the body thing here, or just be challenged in one position, because you can move slowly with control, and you're challenged throughout every portion of the repetition. So yeah, you know what's going on here. We're working primarily, the lats, the shoulder extensors, the lats, the teres major. You've got obviously your rhomboids and your traps and your posterior deltoids and your biceps. They're all working. So this is a really good exercise for trying to work all of those pulling muscles. So really enjoyed that one. Then moved back on to some pressing. Again, it's all Hammer Strength stuff here in Motivated Fitness Gym Cork. And this is the Hammer Strength MTS chest press. Again, independent weight stacks each side, and just a really nice chest press. Again, the resistance increases as you push away, drops off a little bit at the bottom, again allowing for a really nice challenge at every portion of the repetition. And I've talked a lot about machines in this video. I really like machines, but it doesn't mean it's drastically going to change your results and that you need machines to build muscle or to gain strength. It just happens to be the case that I really enjoy them. I really like the way machines are good machines when they're kind of strategically built to allow for the challenge throughout the range of motion. So that is why I love machines. What is up, guys? So this is today's task of the day. Laura and her sister and her sister's boyfriend were so kind to help us to paint some of the chairs here in the house. So when we're not, doing the whole fitness thing, we're doing this at the moment. So we got these chairs, that color, the color of that table, but Laura's theme, the theme for the house suggests that they would be better if they were white. So we are painting them white, DIY job, young people moving into a new place rather than simply buying a new table and chairs. We managed to inherit it and then paint it a different color. So yeah, obviously girls and their interior design stuff. Laura's big into us trying to fit some sort of theme when it comes to our new place, and my desk, which I showed in the last video, that goes against that theme. But we won't do like a full house video because you guys really don't care. You don't want to see my bed. Who gives a shit? But yeah, that's what we're up to, and probably a little bit different to the rest of this video. Hey guys, what is up? So we're back here at the desk again, doing a little bit of work this morning. It is Wednesday, the 7th of August, and I'm just doing some writing currently at the moment. So what I'm up to is writing an article on the cardiovascular system, cardiovascular physiology for our website, triagemethod.com. So that's going to slot into the exercise physiology module, which is coming to a close. There's just a couple of articles left. So these last couple of articles are quite meaty in that there's a lot to them. I'm essentially trying to present everything that you need to know about the cardiovascular system as an interested personal trainer or trainee who really wants to kind of delve into the details. Basically everything that you need to know to understand, how the heart and the blood vessels function normally, what blood is, what function it serves, how oxygen travels in the blood, how it gets to the tissues, what principles lead to things being taken in and out of the blood, etc. So there's really a lot going on there, and then obviously touching on some of the things that happen when we're in a state of poor health or great health, in that we're doing a lot of exercise. So how does the heart and the blood vessels respond when we're doing exercise? Because that's something that's quite important to understand if you're trying to explain certain phenomena that occur during exercise, or you're trying to understand what adaptations you're actually looking for. It's quite important to understand what exactly is going on. 2 seconds, I'm getting a call. Hello? Yes, hi Jar, how are you? Yeah. Perfect, an hour would be fantastic. That's fine, no problem. Alright, I'll see you then, bye bye. That's easy living, too easy living. Coming with a couch for our house, so there you go. Or I keep saying house, like it's basically an apartment, but it's fine, irrelevant. Anyway, as I said, writing up all that at the moment, so all of that is pretty important to understand as I was discussing. So this is how I'm spending kind of a lot of my time these days, is writing or reading, studying. And you'll notice if you've been following along on social media that I haven't been spending as much time on Instagram. I haven't been posting much. And the reason for that is essentially, it comes back to one of Jordan Peterson's kind of key rules in his 12 rules for life is, pursue what is meaningful, not what is expedient. And it's not directly related to that, but I think that's a nice way of kind of summarizing what your drives for action essentially should be. And another thing that Jordan Peterson often repeats, whether or not you're a fan of him, you cannot deny the fact that these are pretty damn valuable messages, is aim at the highest possible good. And that essentially for me, I think for Paddy, and I think for a lot of people who are what I would call living deliberately, I think that is a strong driving force, is that ultimately my decisions are made in accordance with, am I aiming at the highest possible good? Like, is this exactly where I want my life to go? Is this what I'm aiming at? And essentially weighing all of your actions day to day and your decisions up against that. So like that for me is essentially a replacement for what people often call, motivation. Because that kind of short-term feeling of motivation is not really what gets you anywhere. It has to be something bigger. And if you have read, you'll have come across it in a secondary source if you've come across Jordan Peterson's work, or if you've read Friedrich Nietzsche, you'll be aware of the phrase. It's also repeated in A Man's Search for Meaning. If you've read that book by Viktor Frankl, a lot of people have read that, so you might come across it in there. But he who has a why can bear, or he who has a why to live can bear almost any how. And that is a really, really important thing to consider. And while we're talking about like very simple tasks here, and that I'm just doing some writing for a website, it's important to keep these things in mind, because if you're aiming at the highest possible good, and you've got that sort of meaning, that sense of meaning in your life, that sense of purpose, and you've got a why to live, so to speak, like you genuinely see your life as purposeful, then enduring the everyday tasks to then get to that point is a far more doable task. And I think you can see that quite a bit when you do read things like Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, because you're looking at people who are in the depths of the worst places on earth. You can see the same in the Gulag Archipelago by Alexander Solzhenitsyn. You're essentially seeing people who are in the Nazi concentration camps, or the Soviet gulags, the work camps, concentration camps, whatever you want to call them. You're looking at those people and the way that they live, and the spirit with which they endure the worst conditions, and you're thinking to yourself, like, why on earth would I not do what I have the opportunity to do in modern 21st century, in a modern 21st century first world country like Ireland? Essentially I have no excuse to not act on becoming the best possible person that I can, availing of all possible opportunities, and ensuring that I am playing some role in helping others to get better, so that we can all essentially get better together. So yeah, that is something I wanted to touch on, because it's something that I mentioned in the last video. I was discussing essentially what I view my central kind of purpose or interest as being, and that is related to how people can live their best lives with a focus on health. In that, like, a lot of the things that I'm interested in are health related. Hence why I'm interested into I say we because Paddy is very much the same. Why we do the writing that we do, why we are in the industry that we're in, is because they are our interests. And for me, at least, that is essentially something that I see as my purpose, and where I derive my meaning from life, because I can see a purpose in me doing the things that I'm doing, and I can see how that then offshoots to help other people in the long term. That's really important to consider, is that while we all are like individuals, your actions essentially affect the lives of other people distant to you, and the way I think about that, like to justify the work that I do, I guess, is that when I post this article, right, it's about the cardiovascular system. It's mainly probably personal trainers that are going to read it, and my girlfriend often says to me, she's like, no one even reads them, they're too long, but that's not the point. The point is that it's there, is that it's evergreen content, it's there pretty much forever, and that it could be the case that 100 people read it, let's say, okay, 10 people implement it into action, 10 people implement it themselves, but through implementing the advice or the information or whatever, or educating others, that then spreads. Okay, so it might be the case that I discuss blood pressure in that article, and I'm talking about systolic and diastolic blood pressure, blah, 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 talking about the different things that might influence one's blood pressure, and suddenly there's a piece of information there that's actionable for someone. So someone tells their mother, and suddenly their mother enacts some sort of lifestyle change, which could be exercise, and she manages to lower her blood pressure, lowering her risk of stroke and cardiovascular disease and death. Boom, like, that's a win. But not only that, she might then, report her positive results to her husband, she might report them to her friends, and then all it takes is that friend to tell one person, who tells one person, who tells one person, then all these behaviours are essentially, viewed and become part of the collective group of people who happen to be, trying to use lifestyle to change their health, and that's then a driving force for change on into the future. So that's essentially the way that you almost have to try to justify your existence and what you do every day, because it's very easy to just think that life is meaningless and nothing matters, and so you should just kind of exist and just do nothing. Nothing matters, nothing is inherently good and nothing is inherently bad, so it doesn't necessarily matter what you do. But it does matter, because you can essentially use your actions, use your abilities, use your time to do things that are purposeful, not just for yourself, which is important. You're doing the things and you're getting something in return by helping others, by doing something that's meaningful, but you're using that information, those skills, etc., to help other people, which have these very, very minor spin-off effects that could be meaningful then to more people, to the collective. And you don't know how far that can go. So I think that is something to remember, is that you are essentially a node in a network. Like, you are an individual, but everything that you do affects everyone else to some degree. And you can bring that down to, very fine level actions, and that, it might change the way that you interact with the shopkeeper, making sure that that you're smiling at the person, that you say, thank you very much, have a good day on your way out. And that could be the thing that then changes the way that person addresses the next person that comes to buy their goods, and then that person is then leaving with a more positive emotion as they leave the store that day, and they might then have the intent to pass that on. So this stuff can seem quite up in the air when you first think about it, and it's definitely something that's easy to just brush off and just be like, that's just stupid, like positive thinking bullshit. But it is definitely useful if you want to improve your life and you want to try and make yourself useful, because you want to be useful. Everyone wants to be useful. You don't want to be useless. And I think if you can adopt this sort of perspective, where I am aiming at the highest possible good, I am trying to do something useful with my life. How can I be useful? How can this meat vehicle, how can this blob of cells make him or herself useful to go out into the world to make it a better place in some way? And the thing is, the thing that stops a lot of people from thinking like this is that they think it needs to be revolutionary. They think they need to go and, I gotta clean up the oceans today. I've got to get us to Mars. And I mean, yeah, you might be Elon Musk. You're probably not. But that doesn't mean that these subtle little things cannot have potent downstream effects that can make your life better. Because that exercise physiology stuff, that doesn't seem to matter. It doesn't seem like it's something that we need to, it's not going to avoid us from, eventually just destroying the earth and everything, just kind of blowing up and being engulfed in flames by the sun. It's not going to change that, right? But that doesn't mean it's not important. That doesn't mean that being a personal trainer is not something that you cannot derive significant meaning from. Because, for example, if you are a personal trainer, right, you work with clients, you work with people, real world people, who also have different things that they do every day from which they're trying to derive meaning and trying to see purpose. So if you can be the person to help someone, they might be working in aeronautical engineering, they might be working in accounting or whatever, you're helping them to somehow improve their well-being, their health, their longevity, so they'll live longer. And all of those things then enable that person to do more in their lives that are potentially useful to other people. And so it feeds onward. And so the complexity increases. And so it keeps going. So you're always passing something forward. And that's why you do have to kind of view it as your responsibility or your duty to be the best person that you can. Because it's not just about you. If you think you have to make it up, it is about you, and it isn't. Because being the best version of yourself is rewarded in the real world, both directly, whether that's, financial gain, status, whatever, and indirectly in that you get a sense of fulfillment because you feel that you're doing something useful. But it's also not about you, because everything that you do and the contributions that you make contribute to, the overall body of knowledge. It could be the technological development in your field, but it's also helping others to do what they need to do, and helping others get forward. And yeah, that's essentially the message for today, I guess, is that, you might be watching this video and you're thinking, God, my life is worth nothing. I'm what am I? I'm a personal trainer. What's that? Why aren't I a lawyer, or why aren't I a doctor? Because we've got these arbitrary things that we put these certain jobs on pedestals, and other things are just they're kind of second-hand options. Oh, you're a personal trainer, that's cute. But you as a personal trainer have a vital job. Okay, you have a vital job. If you, like, I'm just saying as an example, because there probably are a few of you who are personal trainers. You have a vital job, not just for the reasons that I discussed in the last video, where a lot of the common barriers to health are chronic lifestyle related diseases, and you can play a role in that, but also because, you know, every interaction that you have with every individual that you coach can potentially improve their life and help them to go on and do meaningful things for everyone else, and that gets paid forward. So yeah, that is definitely worth thinking about, guys. You know, worth thinking about, you know, what exactly you're aiming at, how exactly you derive meaning from your life, because I would say there's significant potential for people to change the way that they look at life every morning they wake up. And like, that's obviously a pretty damn potent thing. Like, I mean, if you can wake up every morning with a different perspective on the day that is ahead of you and all of the tasks that are in there, then I think, you know, like, you can change your quality of life. You know, you can, and obviously, like, it's a fairly simple thing. Like, I don't think you can just kind of think your way out of, like, depression immediately. Like, that's not what I'm saying, not at all. But what I'm saying is that for someone like me, having that sort of perspective allows me to make decisions that don't always seem like they're very pretty, like, don't always seem like they're desirable. As in, when I was thinking about, you know, not to bang on about it again because I touched on it in the last video, but when I decided to go back to college for the year ahead, for the next 4 years, like, it's always, of course, in the back of my mind that you are just investing 4 years and what, €60,000 into something when you already have a means of making a living. You would make more business progress, make more money, you know, make more progress in the short term if you didn't do that, and you'd have more time for yourself, and you'd have better health, probably better relationships, better life satisfaction in the short term, if I didn't go ahead and spend those 4 years, you know, studying. Because I could just do triage and I'd just write, and I'd have the opportunity to train twice a day, I'd have better health, I wouldn't be stressed, I wouldn't be anxious, I wouldn't have exams, etc., etc. But the whole point is that it's not just about how you feel in the short term. It's not about feeling happy and comfortable all of the time. It's about fulfilling that desire for purpose and meaning, etc. All the things that I talked about. Like, when you're pursuing that, and you've got that, you know, to go back to the Nietzsche point, if you've got that why to live, then the how is not as important, because I've got my why. I've got my why that is taking me forward. So the how that happens in the meantime, as in, you know, the struggle that will inevitably happen when I'm trying to balance college and relationships and training and exams, like, that'll be a struggle for sure, and I'll probably hate myself in the short term, and I'll look back and I'll think, oh, shouldn't have done it. You know, that there'll be those feelings that will happen, but that how will be overridden by the overall why, because I know why I'm doing it, and I see purpose in it, and I see value in it, and I see meaning in it, and that's going to allow me to then drive forward and eventually look back in, hopefully, 70, 80, 90, 200 years and be like, damn, you know, I'm pretty glad I did that. I left something that was useful for other people behind me. I had a net positive effect on the world, and now I can, you know, go to my deathbed and die and never be again, you know, because that's what happens, and that's what people forget, is that we're all going to die. Like, that's it, you are going to die, and every second I record this video, I am getting 1 second closer to my death, and my life is essentially ticking away. So, you know, you gotta make the most of it, and making the most of it generally isn't just partying all the time and taking drugs and trying to be happy in every moment. That's not what it's about. It's about pursuing some sort of purpose, some sort of meaning, and being a fucking useful individual. Like, that's what it's all about. So I hope that was useful, guys. And remember, like, this is why it is too easy, and why we approach things, you know, with that mindset, because we want people to get better. We want people to be useful individuals, because that's just damn good. So to close this off, it's too easy, and of course, be happy, because you should be grateful for what you have. You should avail of the opportunities that are available to you. You should go and pursue your why and become the best possible version of yourself, not just for yourself, but for me, for my friends, for my family, for all the people in my community, because everything that you do affects everyone else as well. So hopefully that was useful, guys. Comment below if you enjoyed this video. If you want more stuff like this, let me know, and if not, that's totally fine, and I will chat to you guys in the next video.